Witch doctor casts his dice. The king is dying. The wives mourn. The witch doctor consoles the queen. The light of life fades. Only the sun is constant. The announcement of the herald. The king is dead. the royal robe was passed to a new man. The ritual tearing of clothes begins the dance of mourning. Baron Samedi, the god of death, mocks their grief and distracts them with obscenity. Tradition decrees the dead king's brother must court the queen. The blessing of the witch doctor confirms the marriage. Grief subsides as the wedding celebration assures the continuity of life. the ceremony is its spiritual implications. To Western eyes, it is the kaleidoscope of dance. Each African tribe took its own dances to Haiti. Plantation owners forbade dancing, risking their lives and sacrificing their sleep. Slaves gathered in nighttime secrecy to preserve the dances of their religion, a melting pot of tribal customs. Cockfights were a popular entertainment. The Ma'i tribe was proud of its footwork. The Igbo tribe used powerful legs and showy skirt shaking. Vodun also borrowed popular dances. Gede, the god of cemeteries, dances the banda. He loves lewdness, smutty language, and pelvic thrusts.
When I left the United States in 1947, pretty much for good until 1967, I had fought the good fight along with other university students and agitators and so forth for civil rights. We left the country thinking that things were pretty much in order, you know. I was shocked when I came back in 1967 and things were not in order. They were worse than they had ever been.
In 1967, Miss Dunham arrived in the ghetto of East St. Louis as artist in residence. The Imperial Warlords, a local gang, weren't interested in dancing, but like a Pied Piper, she mesmerized them with African drums and enticed them off the streets into her performing arts training center. Today, in a city where there are no movies or theaters, her school is a cultural focus and a place of catharsis where movement and rhythm undermine anger and reinforce pride. If the community is slowly rebuilding from the ashes of riots, it is because, like always, Catherine Dunham's vision captures the imagination of her people. Young children, as well as older brothers, sisters, and parents, are encouraged to attend free classes. Miss Dunham knows that those who are reluctant to dance need only wet their feet with a little Brazilian martial arts to change their minds. There was no local museum, so Catherine Dunham built one.
In the Mandingo group, it's called Kora in the language. And it's compounded by 23 or 21 or sometime 36 strings. And it's played by...
Miss Dunham calls it a dynamic museum because the objects are meant to be touched and used. She invites African musicians to heighten awareness of black culture before slavery. After 45 years of studying Vodun, Miss Dunham became a mambo, a high priestess. Her teacher and mentor is a 97-year-old great-great-great-grandfather she calls Papa Denisier. They met on her first trip to Haiti, and since then, Papa Denisier has shared with her the arts, the secrets, and powers of Vodun. The greeting of priest and mambo is choreography as subtle as any dance.
Leg bound, somebody.
Reading the cards illuminates the ways of the Loa and the fortunes or misfortunes they cause. A mambo must know these things because she's the liaison between her people and their Loa. Now is the time for Loa. Drums honor them, dances arouse them, rattle and bells invoke them. Possession, the supreme moment in Vodun, when a Loa mounts a person like a horse and rides. The horse is spirited. She resists her rider, but until she is saddled, the identity of the Loa is a mystery. It is Damballa. Only the serpent god crawls on his belly. Like the sound of a snake, welcomes Damballa. Kisses the holy earth from whence he has arisen and receives greeting. Must be honored with food. To Damballa, the egg is ambrosia. since it is Dumbala's ceremony, as a good host, he must greet the mambo and listen to her rattle. Asaka, the peasant god, loves practical jokes and lively jigs. In the countryside, never refuse a little old man with a straw hat who asks for a drink of rum. Woe betide the man who refuses a loa. Fire cleanses the spirit and delights Loa. Ogun is the warrior god with rum on his breath, a fiery temper, and a sword to back his oaths. Some gods were born in Haiti. Their violence comes from the rage of enslavement. Africans were torn from their homeland like leaves plucked from trees. There is a tale of a magical lizard who decided to make men forget their troubles. He held a great ceremony. The noise was so deafening that God couldn't think. So he sent St. John to end the ruckus. And St. John approached the ceremony and cried, "Lizard, open the gate for me to enter." The lizard replied, "All may enter here," and took St. John's hands, twirling him. Suddenly, St. John staggered and began to dance, for a loa had entered his head and possessed him. When St. John didn't return, God sent St. Patrick and St. Michael and then St. Peter. Finally, with a splitting headache, God stormed to earth. "Lizard," he cried, "open the gate for me to enter." The lizard bowed low, saying, "Sir, all may enter here." He took God's hands, twirling him. Suddenly, God staggered. The drummers beat a special salute, and the singers sang joyously, for God himself had a loa in his head.
When I was in Paris, Elle magazine came to me and said, what would you like to have written on your tombstone? And I thought, at the time, you must have been reading my mind. So I said, "She tried."
Next on Channel 9, Screening Room, an experimental showcase for independent filmmakers with Peter Bonners as host. This program about Katherine Dunham is going to be repeated Saturday at 12 noon. And remind you that we're in the midst of La Gioconda week here on Channel 9. Weekdays, we've been showing the miniseries La Gioconda, act by act. Act 3 will be tomorrow evening at 6:30, Act 4 Friday evening at 6:30, and a complete performance, an encore of the original live broadcast of the San Francisco Opera of La Gioconda will be Saturday night at 9 o'clock. It will be simulcast in stereo on KQED-FM. And Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock, we present a special film with the royal dancers and musicians from the Kingdom of Bhutan. The film is being released in conjunction with the first tour by the royal dancers and musicians in the United States and Europe. That'll be Saturday, 5 o'clock.
Funding for this program has been provided by grants from Exxon Corporation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by this